have one son. His name is Henry and he's 12 years old. He's my world, my reason for getting up every morning, my motivation for being the best version of myself I can be. For years, it's been just the two of us navigating life together, single dad and kid figuring things out as we go. But Henry has a best friend named Archie. And Archie is 14 years old. And Archie's story is about to become intertwined with ours in a way I never imagined. It has always been clear that Archie comes from a troubled home. You can see it in the small things, the way he devours food when it's offered, like he's not sure when his next meal will come. The way he gravitates toward our house on weekends, lingering as long as he's allowed. The way he sometimes flinches at sudden movements or loud noises. From what I've been able to gather, and I don't have the full picture, Archie's mom is a drug addict. Archie has been on the at-risk register for a long while. Honestly, I don't know why it took them this long to decide he needed to be removed from his home and placed into foster care. Last Friday everything changed. I received a call from my son's school. They were careful with their words, explaining that they couldn't discuss details with me, but they needed my permission to pass my information along to Archie's social worker. My stomach dropped. I said yes, of course, even though I had no idea what I was agreeing to. Not long after, my phone rang again. This time it was Archie's social worker. She explained that a section something or other was being put in place. I couldn't keep track of all the official terminology in that moment. What mattered was this. Archie was going to be removed from his home and placed into foster care. The school had recommended me, she said. They wanted to know if I could take him in. Basically, they were asking me to become a foster parent. Long term, she emphasized. Until Archie turns 18. I honestly didn't know what to say. I stood there in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, completely frozen. Shock doesn't even begin to describe what I felt. Here's the thing. I've been unofficially supporting Archie for a while now. It started small. I pick him up from his house and drop him off at school with Henry. He spends a lot of weekends at our place, so many that I've stopped counting them as visits and started thinking of them as just normal. On days when he doesn't come over, I make sure to pack him something to eat when I pick him up in the morning. He told me once, almost casually, that his school lunch is his only meal most days. That comment haunted me for weeks. I buy him soap and deodorant. Basic hygiene products that every kid should have but that Archie doesn't. I wash his clothes for him because often he shows up wearing the same outfit he had on days before, and it's clear no one at home is helping him stay clean. These things don't feel like grand gestures to me, they feel like the bare minimum any adult should do for a child who needs help. But supporting a kid however I can and taking him on fully as a foster child? That's a massive jump. A canyon-sized leap from where I currently stand. I'm a single dad. I work a decent job but I'm far from well off. I live in a small 2-bedroom house, which means Henry and Archie would have to share a room. They share now when Archie stays over, but those are short bursts. Weekends, maybe a few days at a time during school breaks. This would be permanent. Years of sharing space, sharing privacy, sharing everything. Plus, there's the enormous responsibility of taking on another human being. Another child to feed, to clothe, to parent. Another person whose well-being would depend entirely on my ability to provide, to be present, to not screw up. The social worker explained that they had a lack of foster carers in the local area. If I didn't agree to take Archie, he would likely have to move counties. He'd have to change schools, leave his friends, lose the only stability he has. He'd be dropped into a completely unfamiliar environment with strangers, starting over from scratch in a system that doesn't always have the resources to truly care for the kids it's meant to protect. I couldn't let that happen to him. I couldn't. But I also couldn't immediately say yes. I asked if I could think about it and give them a firm answer in the new year. Archie was already scheduled to stay with me for the 2-week Christmas holiday, as he usually does. They agreed to give me that time. And critically, Archie hadn't been informed about any of this yet. I wanted to give him a normal Christmas as much as possible. He deserved at least that. My heart was screaming at me, of course you're going to take that little boy in. How could you not? But my brain was spiraling with worry about the practical realities, the responsibility, the cost, the logistics of taking on another mouth to feed, another child to clothe and care for. At the same time, I kept thinking about Archie's situation. He's already had such a rough start in life. He needs stability and care more than anything else. I can't bear the thought of him being uprooted again, losing his school, his friends, the small semblance of normalcy he has here. I kept asking myself if I could really give him what he needs. I didn't know if I had all the answers. I've always taught Henry the importance of kindness. I see how much he cares about Archie, how natural their friendship is, how they look out for each other. Part of me felt that this wasn't just about me taking on more responsibility, It was about giving Archie a chance to grow up with love and belonging. Things every child deserves but that Archie has been deprived of. So I was left balancing what was practical with what felt right in my heart. And honestly, I was leaning towards saying yes. I spoke to my mum about it, hoping for support or at least some clarity. She thought it was an awful idea. She's worried I'm biting off more than I can chew, especially as a single dad. She reminded me, as if I needed reminding, that I already have a lot on my plate with work, the house, and raising Henry on my own. She said that taking in another child, especially one with a difficult background, would add stress and might affect my ability to provide for Henry properly. She didn't say it outright, but I could tell she's afraid this decision would make life harder for all of us, including Archie. I understand her concerns. I do. They're the same concerns keeping me up at night. But I couldn't imagine just turning Archie away when he needs help the most. I told her I hadn't made a final decision yet, that I needed to think about what was best for everyone involved, not just what was easiest. And I hadn't even discussed any of this with Henry yet, which was going to be a huge factor in my final decision. If Henry wasn't on board, I couldn't go through with it. I posted about this situation online, just needing to get my thoughts out somewhere. It was meant to be a rant, a way to process my emotions. I didn't expect much response. But the comments that came in changed everything. One person pointed out something I hadn't fully considered. It's 4 years. Obviously kids need support well beyond 18 if you can provide it, but if I could get Archie to graduate high school, I'd already be doing something incredible. Nothing more could be expected of me. It wasn't forever. Also, once Archie turned 16, he could start working and helping around the house more legitimately. Both things would benefit him enormously: learning responsibility, gaining independence, building work skills. They suggested I ask social services what additional resources I'd have access to as a foster parent. Foster kids often qualify for things like free school lunches, which would reduce my costs. There were probably other resources available too, things I wouldn't even know to ask about. And then they said something that cut straight through all my anxiety. Real talk, if it was me, I would do it as long as I didn't think Archie would be a danger to Henry. If he's a good kid, I would do everything in my power to make that happen. I would set up a GoFundMe if necessary. I would lean on friends and family to help. A 14-year-old kid in foster care is not something I'd be able to let happen to a kid I care about. That comment hit me hard. Archie wasn't dangerous. He was a good kid who'd been dealt an impossibly bad hand. He deserved better. Another person shared that they were a single dad to 2 foster children. They'd started much the same way, asked to take in a youth they already knew. They'd been fostering for a few years and said it was one of the best decisions they'd ever made. Yes, it was an adjustment, but it was doable. They talked about the support available through their fostering agency: funding for food, clothing, Christmas and birthdays, respite care hours. All the youth they'd taken in were extremely grateful for a stable home. They ended by saying that if I decided it wasn't for me, there was no shame in that. But if I did decide to do it, they assured me it would be worth it. It's obvious you care about the kid, they wrote. Which is probably already more than he's used to. Those words stayed with me. I did care about Archie. Deeply. And maybe that was enough to start with. 5 days later, I posted an update. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who responded. I genuinely didn't expect so many replies to what was just meant to be me venting my emotions into the void of the internet. When I was first asked to take in Archie, I felt honored. Then immediately terrified. I'm quite an anxious person in general, and my thoughts flooded with concerns about whether I'd be good enough to support Archie in the way he needs. My mum didn't help. I love her, but I think I get my anxiety from her, and she has it on a much higher scale than I do. All week, she texted me every possible thing that could go wrong. You're already stretched thin with work and Henry. You won't get one-on-one time with Henry anymore. How will you afford everything? These were real concerns. Valid ones. And I'm actually glad she brought them up because they gave me the opportunity to think about how I could mitigate them rather than just worry vaguely. Several people had mentioned the fostering allowance in the comments. I knew it existed, but I couldn't find concrete information online about how much it actually was. Every source gave a different answer, and none suggested it was very much. So I took the advice and called the social worker's office directly. I told them I was seriously considering taking in Archie, which they were thrilled about, but I needed to understand the finances first to see if it was actually feasible. They explained that they couldn't provide exact numbers because every case is different and it isn't decided until a placement is found. However, they told me the minimum would be around £190, about $240 US, per week, and it would likely be completely tax-free. Additionally, I'd receive a significant discount on things like council tax. That was honestly much more than I expected. Much higher than any figure I'd seen online. They also put me in touch with some other foster carers who answered my questions about the day-to-day realities, which was incredibly helpful. This week was very busy. I worked out my finances carefully. I added the estimated fostering allowance and calculated how much Archie would likely increase my expenses. Food, clothing, school supplies, all the little things that add up. When I did the math, I realized I'd actually have a surplus compared to my current situation. Many of the foster carers I spoke to don't work full-time. They use the fostering allowance to supplement their income, which allows them to be more present for the kids. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that, but they mentioned it helps to work part-time because fostering involves a lot of work beyond just being present. Meetings with social workers, reports, training during the first year to become fully qualified. I considered it seriously. With the additional allowance, I could move to a 0.6 contract, working 3 days per week instead of 5, while still covering the costs of moving to a 3-bedroom house. While that would leave me with slightly less disposable income than I currently have, it wouldn't be a significant reduction. I spoke with my employer and they said they'd support me if I decided to do this. I haven't made a final decision about reducing my hours because I don't want it to seem like I'm taking advantage of Archie's allowance. But knowing the option exists makes the whole thing feel more manageable. After sorting out the finances, I needed to talk to Henry. This was the most important part of my decision. If Henry said no, I'd struggle to go ahead with it. This would affect his life as much as mine. I took him out, just the two of us, and explained the situation. I didn't go into the details of why Archie was going into care. That's not my story to tell, even though Archie himself has been fairly open about his rough home life. I discussed the potential challenges with Henry honestly. Less one-on-one time between us. Less privacy, at least in the short term while we looked for a bigger house. Sharing a room for months, possibly longer. Henry was incredibly supportive. He said that he and Archie had actually talked about how they both wished Archie could come live with us permanently. My heart swelled hearing that. I told Henry not to mention anything to Archie yet, not until I had the chance to speak with him and the social worker. He agreed. Yesterday, I arranged for social services to come over. Archie, his social worker, and I sat down together in my living room. This was the moment that would change all our lives. They told Archie he was going to be placed in foster care. Archie cried. A lot. I cried too. He asked to see his mom, and the social worker assured him they'd arrange that as soon as possible. In that moment, Archie didn't seem like a teenager. He seemed like a small child whose entire world was crumbling around him. My heart broke watching him process this information, watching him try to be brave while also being completely devastated. Then they asked Archie if he'd want to stay with me. Even through his distress about being in care, about losing his mom despite everything, he said he'd love to stay with me. We discussed what it would mean, the practicalities, how it would affect all of us, what his life would look like. Afterward, Archie and his social worker spoke privately. Then the social worker and I talked alone. She expressed how thrilled they were about my decision. She said they were pleased I planned to move to a bigger house soon because Archie would need his own space eventually. I fully agreed. Sharing a room short-term was one thing, but as Archie got older, he'd need privacy and a space that was truly his own. Normally, the boys spend most of their time upstairs playing Xbox, lost in whatever game is currently consuming their attention. But later that day, Archie came downstairs and asked if we could watch a movie together. He sat next to me on the couch, rested his head on my shoulder and said quietly, "Thank you for letting me stay with you." I can feel tears welling up in my eyes again just writing this. I put my arm around him and said, "I'll always be there for you." Today, Archie seems a little down, which is entirely understandable. I honestly expected him to take it harder than he has. The resilience of this kid amazes me. To cheer him up, we're going to see the new Lion King movie, even though I personally hate those live-action remakes, but this is for Archie, and then we're going out to eat, letting the boys choose the restaurant. I think about the future sometimes, helping Archie with homework, teaching him to drive, watching him graduate high school, being there for all the moments his biological family couldn't or wouldn't be there for. I think about Henry growing up with a brother, learning through example what it means to show up for people who need you. I think about Christmases where Archie doesn't have to wonder if he'll have presents or a nice meal. Birthdays where he feels celebrated. Ordinary Tuesday evenings where he comes home from school knowing there will be food in the fridge and someone who cares about his day. These aren't grand gestures. They're the basic building blocks of childhood that every kid deserves. And if I can give that to Archie, if I can give him 4 years of stability, of knowing he matters, of having a place where he belongs, then every challenge will be worth it. My mom might think I'm biting off more than I can chew. Maybe she's right. Maybe there will be moments when I feel completely overwhelmed, when I question everything, when I wonder if I'm doing this right. But I'd rather struggle trying to do something good than live comfortably knowing I turned away when a child needed me. So here we are. Henry, Archie, and me. A single dad and two boys navigating life together. It's not the family structure I imagined when Henry was born, but it's the family we've become. And I wouldn't change it for anything. We're going to be okay. All three of us. Together.